They said the apartment above mine was empty, but every night at 2:17 a.m. I'd hear it, scraping, dragging, 3 slow knocks, and when I finally went to see for myself, the room was bare, except for one thing, fresh footprints in the dust right above my bed. So don't skip this video, because what I heard that night still hasn't stopped. I used to think city noises couldn't scare me. I grew up in New York. I've heard worse. Sirens, shouting, rats in the walls. But the sounds coming from the apartment above me weren't normal city noises. They were personal. Like whoever lived up there knew exactly when I was home and exactly what I was doing. I moved to Los Angeles in August 2021 after landing a remote editing job. The apartment was small but clean. 3rd floor of a 5-story building on South Vermont Avenue. Old building, beige hallways, flickering lights, a broken intercom that buzzed whenever someone slammed a door downstairs. My unit, 3B, sat directly below 4B. The leasing manager, Mrs. Alvarez, told me 4B was occupied by a quiet, long-term tenant. I never met them. First few weeks were fine. My routine was simple. Wake up, make coffee, work from my couch, and unwind with Netflix. At night, I'd hear faint noises from above. Creaks, soft footsteps, maybe furniture moving. Nothing strange. Until late September. That's when I started noticing a pattern. It was always around 2:17 a.m. Every night, like clockwork, the person upstairs dragged something heavy across the floor. Slow, steady, back and forth. A scraping sound that lasted exactly 3 minutes, then silence. At first I thought it was pipes or old floorboards settling, but one night I decided to check. I looked at the ceiling, phone flashlight on, and pressed my ear to the drywall. The sound wasn't mechanical, it was deliberate. Someone was pushing something. When it stopped, I heard faint tapping, 3 short knocks, right above where I was standing. I remember whispering, "What the hell?" under my breath, and then tap, tap, tap. 3 knocks back, like he was answering. The next morning, I told myself I'd imagined it. Maybe I was tired, maybe it was plumbing, but the tapping came back the next night. Same time, 2:17 a.m. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks again. It went on for a week. I recorded it on my phone, thinking maybe I could analyze the sound, but the recordings were useless, all static and low hums, like the mic couldn't capture it. I even tried asking Mrs. Alvarez about the tenant upstairs. She frowned, typing on her computer. "Huh, that's weird," she said. 4B's listed as vacant right now. My stomach dropped. "What do you mean vacant?" "Tenant moved out 2 weeks ago. We're still prepping it for a new lease." I wanted to laugh, tell her she was wrong, but her tone was serious. That night I stayed up until 2 a.m., waiting. At 2:17, it started again. The dragging, the knocks, and this time something else, a low sound like someone whispering through a wall. Too quiet to make out, but rhythmic. I turned off my lights and looked up. The ceiling paint had a hairline crack running straight above my bed, and through it, dust was falling. I barely slept. The next morning, I went to the lobby and asked Marco about 4B. He shook his head. "Nah, man, that one's empty. I got the keys. You want to see?" I hesitated. "You sure it's okay?" He shrugged. "As long as you don't touch anything." So we went up. The hallway was silent. Even the air felt still, heavy with that old building must. When Marco unlocked 4B, the door creaked open into a bare apartment. No furniture, no boxes, no sign anyone had been there recently. But the floor caught my attention. The wooden planks were worn, scuffed in a long, straight line, like someone had dragged something heavy back and forth. "See?" Marco said. "Nobody's here." He closed the door, locked it, and left. I stood there a few seconds longer, just listening. Nothing. But that night, when I lay in bed, the noise came back. Only now it sounded closer, lower, almost like it was inside my apartment. I moved my bed away from that spot and slept on the couch. Didn't help. Every night around 2:17 a.m., I'd hear something, scraping, dragging, whispering. Once I thought I heard breathing near the vent above my kitchen sink. A slow inhale, then a faint exhale. When I shined my flashlight up, the sound stopped instantly. That's when I noticed fingerprints on the vent cover, tiny gray smudges, like someone had been holding on to it. I tried convincing myself it was maintenance, maybe dust, but deep down I knew better. I emailed Mrs. Alvarez again, asking if anyone had accessed 4B recently. She replied, "No one should be entering that unit. Please don't worry, old buildings make odd noises." That night I dreamt I was standing in 4B, empty, quiet. Then, in the dream, I looked down and saw a square cutout in the floorboards, a hidden panel. When I knelt to open it, something underneath whispered, "Don't move me." I woke up drenched in sweat, heart hammering, at exactly 2:17 a.m., and the dragging sound had already started. I couldn't take it anymore. The next day I asked Marco if the building had crawl spaces or maintenance shafts. He frowned. "Nah, just vents in the boiler room." "Why?" "Because someone's up there, at night, moving around." He looked uncomfortable. "You're not the first to say that." "What do you mean?" He hesitated, glancing around like he didn't want to be overheard. "Last tenant in 4B, old guy, lived alone, kept complaining about noises too, said people were crawling between walls, started boarding up his vents." "What happened to him?" "Dead," Marco said flatly. "Heart attack, in the shower." He walked away before I could ask anything else. That evening I noticed something taped to my door, a yellow sticky note, written in shaky handwriting. "You shouldn't be listening." No signature. I checked the hallway, empty. That night I left all my lights on, but when the clock hit 2:17, they flickered and went out. I sat frozen on the couch, clutching my phone flashlight. The noise began again, scraping, dragging, but it didn't sound like it was coming from above anymore. It was coming from the hallway. Then 3 knocks, this time on my front door. Tap, tap, tap. I whispered, "Who is it?" Silence. Then a faint voice muffled through the wood. "You moved the bed." I backed away slowly. The knocking started again, faster, harder. I called 911, but before the dispatcher picked up, I heard the sound of keys rattling in the lock. Someone was trying to open my door. I grabbed a kitchen knife and ran to the balcony. From outside, I could see the handle shaking violently. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Everything went silent. A minute later, the power came back on. When the police arrived 15 minutes later, they found no one in the hallway, no footprints, no signs of forced entry. But when the officer looked up at the ceiling, he pointed something out, a small square cutout panel, half covered by dust, a crawl space access, right above where my bed used to be. Maintenance sealed the panel the next morning. They told me it was just old insulation space, but I could see fresh scratches along the edges of the cover, like someone had pried it open recently. I tried to move out, but breaking the lease was expensive, and I didn't have enough saved, so I stayed. Weeks went by with no noise. Then, last Thursday, as I was making coffee before work, I heard something faint through the vent, a soft shuffle, then 3 taps, exactly like before, only this time they were coming from below. My ceiling has new paint over that crawl space panel, but every few days a thin line of dust appears around it again. I've filed multiple noise complaints, but the building insists 4B is still unoccupied. When I check the mail slots downstairs, 4B's box always has junk mail removed, like someone's still taking it. And last week, I found another sticky note on my door, same shaky handwriting. It said, "You moved me again." Now, every night at 2:17 a.m., I keep my lights off, stay silent and listen, because the worst part isn't the sound anymore. It's the moment right after, when everything stops and I can hear the faint creak of footsteps above me, moving toward the crawl space.